The affirmative side will be arguing that the U.S. should abolish the Electoral College and replace it with a direct vote system. This argument can be presented because the Electoral College does not fairly represent American citizens. This can be proven by a number of arguments. One, the Electoral College gives us disproportionate voting powers to states, favoring the smaller states with more electoral votes per person. Two, the Electoral College grossly distributes campaign resources unequally. Three, the Electoral College forces a two-party system, and four, the Electoral College allows for special interest groups to form. The Electoral College gives disproportionate voting powers to states, favoring the smaller states, with more electoral votes per person. According to an article by fairvote.org, the Center for Voting and Democracy, each individual vote in Wyoming counts nearly 4 times as much in the electoral vote as each individual vote in Texas. And Wyoming has a much smaller population than Texas. In order to see the disproportionate electoral vote, the article goes on to say that Wyoming has 1 elector for every 177,556 people, and Texas has 1 elector for about every 715,499 people. That's a pretty big difference. Small states need fewer people than large states to get 1 electoral vote. This technically gives them more voting power. Just so you understand a little more what this means for you, CPP Gray, who has a master's degree in political science from King's College, states that Californians are 10 votes short of what they should get. Because those electoral votes went to smaller states. That means your vote isn't worth as much. Ballotpedia.org states that getting rid of the Electoral College would give everyone an equally weighted vote, regardless of the state they live in. And as we all know, the U.S. is all about equality. The Electoral College grossly distributes campaign resources unequally. Candidates will only visit states they think they can win. A map drawn up by CNN showed that in the 2008 election, 10 states weren't even visited by either of the candidates, and only 2 states had more than 40 visits by the candidates. Part of the reason for not visiting all the states or making very few visits is because, like CPP Gray says, all but 2 states have a winner-take-all system, meaning that a candidate only needs to get 51% of the vote from each state to win all electoral votes. Because of how the system works, a presidential candidate could become president with only 21% of the electoral vote. The candidate can do this by focusing on the states where the votes count the most and ignoring the states where the votes count least. How is that fair? The Electoral College forces a two-party system. Fairvote.org says that because of our two-party system, voters often find themselves voting for the lesser of 2 evils, rather than a candidate they really feel will do the best job. Because people know that the candidate they want to be elected never get enough votes, they don't vote for them. This keeps the U.S. a strictly Democratic and Republican nation. Third parties never have a chance. The same source also brings up the point that third parties can never enter the race without people seeing it as them taking votes from other candidates, even though they could very well be a better option for the country. The Electoral College allows for special interest groups to form. There isn't actually anything bad about special interest groups in itself. When it comes to presidential election by Electoral College, it can cause candidates to focus only on a larger special interest group. George C. Edwards, author of Why the Electoral College is Bad for America, says, "The Electoral College provides the potential for any cohesive special interest concentrated in a large competitive state to exercise disproportionate power, for example, large companies influencing the vote." Special interest groups are known for their lobbying. Robert M. Alexander, author of Presidential Electors and the Electoral College, an examination of lobbying, laboring electors and campaigns for faithless votes, wrote that intensive lobbying campaigns aim to persuade electors to change their votes have occurred in each of the past 3 elections. He also writes that electors vary sharply in the amount of political and financial commitment they make to their respective parties and presidential candidates. So how do we know that our electors are actually voting for the candidate they are supposed to according to what the people want? Alexander predicts that elector lobbying campaigns will persist in future elections, and a significant number of electors will consider joining the ranks of past faithless electors, needlessly putting the republic at risk. And why wouldn't it? It has in the past, so why wouldn't it now? The Electoral College is the reason that Americans are not fairly represented in the presidential election. A citizen's vote in a large state counts for less than a citizen in a small state. Electoral votes are actually taken from the big states and given to the smaller ones. Presidential candidates don't even visit all the states, and others they visit very few times. Also, lobbying can and has affected electors and which candidate they give electoral vote to, because not all are completely loyal to the people and can always be swayed by lobbying groups. All these examples show that the Electoral College should be abolished and replaced by a direct vote system. This would allow for a fair and equal vote all across the nation. No group or state would have an advantage because the presidential candidates would have to focus on everyone. And special interest groups wouldn't be able to demonstrate disproportionate power. Also, lobbying groups couldn't persuade the electors to give their electoral vote to the candidate that would benefit the specific special interest group. A direct vote would allow for each American's vote to be counted equally.